evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, Twitch, X, and on Instagram. I'm Bryson Carver. It's great to be with you on this Championship Reaction Monday. Tons to get into from start to finish on today's show. I got to say, normally, especially during these finals, I've been playing like an intro video, like to sort of, give y'all the rundown of what we're going to be talking about. I figured I wanted to say congratulations. If I can adjust my camera here. I want to say congratulations to the Knicks and Knicks fans live on air as opposed to a pre-recorded video. That just wouldn't feel as heartfelt as I genuinely feel for those fans. We'll get into obviously game 5. Knicks win their first title in 53 years. Where does Jalen Brunson rank among all-time Knicks? What is Wemby going to have to do in terms of adjusting moving forward? Is he still the best player in the world if he was that to begin with? I'll answer that in about 40 minutes or so. My top 10 players in the NBA. I always do that list prior to the playoffs. Now we're going to do it coming out of the playoffs, and safe to say it is going to look very, very different than it did back in mid-April. And at the end of today's show, I want to give love to Mike Brown because I'm seeing love for Jalen and for Cat and OG and Bridges and Josh Hart and Alvarado and everybody. Does the coach not have anything to do with this? I mean, what are we talking about? So give Mike Brown some love at the end of the show while he has all of a sudden turned into probably the most underrated coach in the NBA. Let's get to business. But first, congratulations to the New York Knicks, to their fans. They waited 53 years, got the job done in Game 5 on Saturday night. 95-91 victory over the San Antonio Spurs. And I think, my bad, 94-90. My apologies. 94-90 victory over the San Antonio Spurs to wrap up the championship. And we have to start with Jalen Brunson. I think that goes without saying. And what he did, ladies and gentlemen, is put together, this is not hyperbole, one of the greatest finals performances of all time, given the circumstances, given that it was to close a championship. We'll show you kind of the historical context as it relates to best championship closing performances. We'll get to that in a moment. But as far as the raw numbers, put that up on the screen. Jalen freaking Brunson, 45 points, most points ever by a Knick in the NBA Finals. 14 for 27 for the field, 4 of 7 from downtown, 13 of 15 from the charity stripe. He was utterly sensational. And I think what has become very apparent about Jalen is not only is he the most clutch player in the league, that kind of goes without saying, but this is a guy who there's not a defense for him. I talked about as close as this series I thought was going to be, and I had Spurs in 7. My apologies, Knicks fans. It was pretty close. I mean, literally all 5 games came down to the final 2 minutes at the very least. Is that part of the reason that I did take San Antonio? Is that for as great as I thought Brunson was, I picked the Knicks to go to the finals before the season started, in large part because of this player. But that Eastern Conference Finals against the Cavs, it's like, oh, God, Brunson's going to eat these guys alive. It's Donovan Mitchell and James Harden guarding him. Like, he's going to barbecue chicken, as Shaquille O'Neal would say. Well, in the NBA Finals, it's Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper. Like, those guys are excellent defenders. And, by the way, Jalen, who gets a lot of his points in the paint, Victor Wembanayama is going to be down there and not going to get a whole lot of shots, up over him, right? Wrong. So it's Spurs are up in the fourth quarter. Jalen Brunson goes on his own 10-0 run. Jalen and just Jalen. 45 points of the 94 that the Knicks scored in that basketball game came from Jalen Brunson. And I think it is, we'll get to later, is he going to be the greatest Knick ever? Is he already the greatest Knick ever? I think he is unquestionably, and this is saying something because New York loves their basketball. I think he goes down as easily the most beloved Knick ever. Walt Clyde Frazier, I'd say, probably held that title just because of the fact that he won 2 championships. He had the iconic Game 7 performance back in 73, their last, or I guess it was back in 70, their last championship. You've got the fact that he obviously calls games primarily with the legendary Mike Breen. It was great to see Mike Breen calling that game and these finals as he always does, but calling the Knicks winning it. I'd say Walt Clyde Frazier, probably the most beloved Knick prior to Saturday night. Now it's Brunson. Is the fact that this is a Knicks team that is well-constructed, good roster. OG Anunoby was the second best player in this series. Cat was great in the first 2 games of the series, really kind of quieted down because of what often gets Cat in trouble a lot, and that's fouls. He fouled out in Game 5 after scoring 2 points, only played 21 minutes. That's, God bless him, that's kind of Cat's biggest issue. Mikal Bridges never missed a game in his career. The Knicks gave up 4 first-round picks to get him. Josh Hart, teammate of Jalen Brunson's at Villanova, their hustle guy. All of those things had a big game 1, by the way. All those things, the bench guys, Shamet and Alvarado, Mitch Robinson, who had the big rebound late, is that as well constructed as this roster is, None of those guys showed up in game 5, at least in the offensive end. OG was fine, hit some clutch, the clutch free throw late. Mikal Bridges, a clutch free throw late. But you could tell, and they even mentioned it on the broadcast, Richard Jefferson, Tim Legler, they're like, man, you could tell, especially how many Knicks fans were in San Antonio. There's people saying that were at the game. It was like 60-40 Knicks fans at the Frost Pick Center. It's unbelievable. But is the fact that, felt like the pressure, felt like oh my God, we're about to break this half-century-long curse. And OG's won a championship in Toronto, but he didn't play because he was hurt. Actually, I think he might have had appendicitis, if I'm not mistaken. Mikal Bridges has been to a finals, was up 2-0 with the Phoenix Suns, and then they blew it to the Milwaukee Bucks. And Giannis, like, the pressure did kind of get to them. Never once got to Jalen. Even in the games, I remember talking about after game 1, when he injures his ankle and injures his knee, is that I didn't think Jalen played that well in game 1, even though he scored over 30. But what was he in the fourth quarter? He was money. He got wherever he wanted. Whether it's the fadeaway, jumper over basically anybody to knock it down, nothing but net. Whether it was the corner 3 in that game. Whether it's the fact that his patented kind of dribble to get around to his left hand, to his patented left hand to get to the rim almost at will. He got whatever he wanted. He always gets whatever he wants. And it's evidenced by this number. If you look at Jalen Brunson this postseason, and we talk about guys, the conversations about who's clutch and who's not. Everybody knows Jalen Brunson's clutch, probably the most clutch player in basketball. But we hear this thing all the time with guys, oh man, they're front runners. Steph Curry, which I think is BS. Steph's been accused of that. If there is one guy on the face of this earth, one basketball player on the face of this earth that is not a front runner, it is Jalen Brunson, as evidenced by these numbers in the postseason. When the Knicks were leading, he shot 42% from the field, 30% from the three. Not even close to efficient. But when the Knicks were down or tied, he shot 51% from the field as a 6'2 guard and 43% from three-point range. He got better when the Knicks were down. It reminds me a little bit of a stat. I remember when the Chiefs won their most recent Super Bowl 2.5 years ago, and we were pulling out some Patrick Mahomes stats like he's actually a better quarterback trailing than leading. It's an unbelievable thing. That's what you're seeing with Brunson. Is that we see in his demeanor on the court, we see all these things like doesn't get rattled, moments never too big for him. A lot of that's the fact that he did win 2 championships, national championships at Villanova. But it's also an element of that confidence. I can get wherever I want. I mean, honestly, I thought he would have a good series. I thought it would be somewhat of a drop-off from the Eastern Conference Finals because of who was guarding him. He goes from Donovan Mitchell and the cone, formerly known as James Harden, whatever he wants, to the finals. These 2 young, quick, twitchy defenders in Castle and Harper didn't matter. Not for a second did it matter. And it was one of the great finals performances ever, as evidenced by this next graphic we're going to show you. We talk about the great finals performances of all time, whether in wins or in losses. If we're talking about losses, we mentioned this last week on my top 10 finals moments ever. Isaiah Thomas scoring 25 in the third quarter on a bad ankle, 1988. This didn't make the list, but LeBron James scoring 51 against the unbelievably stacked Warriors. Like, those are the moments in losses. In wins, the most points to ever close out a championship. Put that graphic on the screen right now. We remember Giannis 5 years ago, scoring 50. Very few people alive remember Bob Pettit in 1958 scoring 50 against the Celtics, but that did happen. That was Bill Russell's only finals loss. Jalen Brunson, 45 on the other night. Michael Jordan, who, I wasn't alive for this, but who that remembers it, or was alive for that time, forgot Game 6, 1998 against the Jazz, when Jordan scored 45 of the Bulls' 87 points. And Magic Johnson at number 5. Magic Johnson, the best game of his career. 42 points as a rookie in the 1980 finals, jumping center for Kareem. That's the company that Jalen Brunson is in. He's also in, and this you could argue is like kind of a niche stat, but there is an element of, well, at the same time, what you do in college, not always, as we know, but these guys that play 2-3 years, and that's not as common nowadays, it can help you at the next level, especially if you're not somebody who's as athletically gifted as some other players in the league are. Brunson's not going to wow you with his athleticism or his vertical or anything of that sort. But if you look at guys that have won the following, make sure I'm getting this right: an NBA Finals, a Finals MVP, an NCAA championship, and a National College Player of the Year. There are 5 individuals ever who have done that. Put up that list. Seen those names before? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the all-time leading scorer for 4 decades. Bill Walton, injuries kind of hurt Bill Walton in his NBA career, but he was a great player in the NBA and an awesome player in college. Magic Johnson, he is pretty good. Michael Jordan, he's decent. Jalen Brunson, guys with an NBA title, Finals MVP, NCAA title, and a college basketball player of the year. Kareem, Bill Walton, Magic, Michael Jordan, and Jalen Brunson. That is the company he keeps. And so you'll see where I have him, going forward, or at least through the rest of this offseason, going to next season. My top 10 players in the NBA, that's coming up in about a half hour, so please stay tuned for that. But I think it's going to have to we need to re-examine, and I've discussed this before with Steph Curry, like, oh, Steph Curry, can he really be the best player in the world? It's like, well, I don't know, man. He's the greatest shooter of all time, and he gets buckets at will. He's won 4 championships. He's at least got an argument for it in his prime, obviously. My question is, I'm not saying Brunson's the best player in the world. My question is, why can't he be? If Wemby was the best player in the world, we vastly outplayed Wemby, and we know Wemby's going to get better, and we understand that. We saw the Western Conference Finals, Shea, against that Spurs defense, struggled, really struggled. Brunson got whatever he wanted in the fourth quarter. Jokic, a first-round exit against a beat-up Timberwolves team. Luka, cone on the defensive end. And by the way, Brunson, Luka, separate. Kind of seems to be going in Brunson's direction right now. Since Since Brunson left to go join the Knicks back in 2022 when this whole thing started. And so this was Jalen after the game. I was joking with someone earlier today that finding Jalen Brunson sound bites to do on the show, like throughout these playoffs and in the past, is kind of frustrating because he's very succinct and to the point. It's like 5-second answers. It's not like he's not being rude. It's just kind of the same old, moving on to the next game. It's a 0-0 series. That's what all the Knicks said. This was Jalen Brunson after the fact, winning his first championship, what he said to the media afterwards.
We're just going to describe it, but I'll say I put a lot of time and effort into trying to be the best player I can be to try and help a team win. Just really thankful I have the organization, the coaching staff, my teammates to have my back every single day. I think that means the most to me.
It was so cool. Obviously, everyone saw the image right after the game. He shakes Mitch Johnson's hand, Mitch Johnson, head coach of the Spurs, and then, hugs his father, Rick Brunson, who's assistant coach in the Knicks. And Jalen has talked about in the aftermath about how, this is the most time he's gotten to spend with his dad because his dad was a journeyman player in the NBA, kind of bounced around the league. And then Jalen went to college at Villanova, and then he played with the Mavericks, and now he's with the Knicks, where his dad has been, for the last 3-4 years. So it's been... That was a dope moment. Mike Breen had a sensational call, as he tends to do because he's legend, about how life isn't perfect, but there are perfect moments, and that was one of them. It was really cool to see. And as far as a conversation that I think isn't going anywhere for some time, not just this offseason, but depending what the Knicks do next year, is this an all-time great team? And if so, where do they rank? Well, there are numbers that would suggest... yeah, they are an all-time great team. Let's get to those before I get into kind of the meat of my argument. So the first thing we want to show you is longest win streaks in NBA playoff history. Show that stat. Now, Game 3 broke the Knicks' winning streak, but the 2017 Warriors, who I and a lot of folks believe is the greatest team ever, 15 straight playoff wins. Only team that's ahead of the Knicks. Knicks won 13 straight this year, followed by the 99 Spurs, who won 12 straight. And then the 01 Lakers and the 1989 Lakers won 11 straight playoff games. So longest win streaks in playoff history. Knicks are the second best ever. Double-digit wins. They're the best ever, tied with the 2017 Warriors, 2016 Cavs, 2014 Spurs, 2013 Heat. Now, outside of the Warriors in 17, and that Spurs team in 14 was excellent, as was the 2013 Heat, we don't necessarily look at all 5 of those like, oh my gosh, just unreal. 26 Knicks, we'll get to that in a moment. 17 Warriors are recognized as an all-time great team. 16 Cavs are remembered for the 3-1 comeback and LeBron doing what he did, but we don't look at that as, oh my God, that roster, one of the greatest we've ever seen. 14 Spurs played team basketball, 13 Heat was Bron in his prime, and that was a good Heat roster. And then this one, which I think is really, really notable. Before we show you this next graphic, I think it is really, really important. This isn't carving up the context, but that we do bring some context to the fact that going into these playoffs, it was, I'd say, surveying the sports media landscape, surveying what fans were saying, I'd say it was 60-40 people picking the Knicks to beat the Hawks in the first round? I mean, it was not. You had a lot of folks saying, hey, man, Atlanta's on a roll. They made some moves at the deadline. They're a good team. And to Atlanta's credit, they took the Knicks deeper than anybody. They took them 6 games in the first round. But we know what the Knicks did to end that series. They won by 51 points in Game 6. In the second round, most people picked the Knicks, but a lot of folks were like, man, Philadelphia came back from 3-1 down on Boston, and Embiid's ready to go. Maxi's balling. This could be an interesting series. Yeah, they dusted them in 4. It wasn't even close. Wasn't competitive. Eastern Conference Finals, most, if not everybody, picked the Knicks over the Cavs. But go back and look at what people were saying going into that series. It was not unanimous opinion that Jalen Brunson was better than Donovan Mitchell. Go back and watch. Like, there was kind of this whole thing, like, whether the Knicks win or not, we'll kind of get the answer. Was it correct for the Knicks to go out and get Brunson instead of trading for Donovan Mitchell? Because for those that remember, Brunson joined the Knicks 2022. Donovan Mitchell traded to the Cavs in 2022 after being linked to the Knicks. That was not unanimous opinion that Brunson was better than Donovan Mitchell. It obviously is now. And in the NBA Finals, the Spurs were not overwhelming favorites, but pretty heavy favorites. I mean, I'd say most folks that gambled in Vegas took San Antonio. They won 60 games. They knocked out the defending champion Thunder and won a Game 7 on the road. Like, yeah, they're probably going to win the championship. Gentleman's sweep. Close gentleman's sweep, but they won in 5 nonetheless. I bring that up to say this. Best point differential in a playoff run in NBA history, go. Knicks are in first place all time. They're followed by some of the greatest teams ever. The 71 Bucks, excellent team. That was Kareem at the very beginning of his prime. Oscar Robertson was on that team. Followed by the 17 Warriors, who we already mentioned. 0-1 Lakers, Shaq and Kobe in their prime. 91 Bulls, the first Jordan championship team. The New York Knicks had the greatest point differential in the history of the NBA playoffs. And their total point differential, I think it was like plus 283, I think is what it was. If you took away the 51-point win, just take 51 points off that. So bump it from 283 down to 232. That's still the greatest point differential in NBA history for a playoff run. And so, are they an all-time great team? Let's see what they do next year. Because the argument against it is, yeah, they were the 3 seed. Like, I mean, you know, it's hard to, like the 0-1 Lakers, if I remember correctly, were a 2 seed. Like, we've had teams that we view as all-time great that weren't rolling through the regular season. It depends on what they do next year. Here's what I know without a shadow of a doubt. Because a big deal was made in 2016 when the Cavs won the title. Oh my gosh, this means everything for Cleveland. I'm not saying it didn't mean anything to Cleveland. I don't think any championship of my lifetime in any sport, with the exception of the 04 Red Sox. And I remember the 04 Red Sox. I was 1 year old. I'm a Red Sox fan, unfortunately. But I was a year old at the time. I have not seen a championship mean more to a city outside of the 04 Red Sox did to Boston than these Knicks meant to New York. It's unbelievable. I mean, you look at the city, you look at around America, all these Knicks fans that are just, I don't want to say coming out of the woodworks because that's not fair. Because the thing about Knicks fans, I was talking to somebody who lives in New York the other day that said, you know, the thing that's makes this so special is that Knicks fans are so freaking loyal. They are. They dealt with some of the most heartbreaking years of a championship drought ever. They win the title in 73. They're really not truly in the championship mix until the 90s with Patrick Ewing, but they kept running to Michael Jordan. And then Jordan retires. They make the finals in 94, and their hearts break. They lose to Houston. And then by the time then they make the finals in 99, but Ewing's hurt out of his prime. That's a little Charles Sprewell, and it was a good team, but that team had no chance against the Spurs in 99 with Tim Duncan and David Robinson. Had no chance. I mean, it was a gentleman, so we wasn't close. And then you go in the years that follow, and it's just utter incompetence by the front office. Bad draft picks, bad trades. You had the Phil Jackson years, which were a disaster. Carmelo Anthony was good. That was, he gave you 25, 30 a night and not much else. And then after that, you have the 2019 offseason when it's like, oh my gosh, we're going to get the number 1 pick and get Zion Williamson. And we're going to sign Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in free agency. They miss out on the first and second pick of that draft. End up taking RJ Barrett, number 3 out of Duke. And then famously, Kyrie went to Brooklyn. And they were in the wilderness for a bit. Then they had the Julius Randle year. They make the playoffs the first time. Tibbs takes over. You get Jalen Brunson 2 years after that. And Leon Rose, Worldwide West. Credit to them for building this roster. This is, I've heard some call it like one of the most improbable. I don't know if I'd go that far yet to where it's like, I cannot believe they won the championship. I don't feel that way. Maybe I'd feel differently if I were a Knicks fan and I'd struggled my whole life and it's like, is this real? But it will go down as one of the most iconic championships ever because of what it meant to that city. And let's be honest, because of what city it is. It's New York City. It's the media capital of America. And so, honest to God, couldn't be happier for the Knicks. Couldn't be happier for their fans. They deserve this. They've earned every second of this. And, man, that parade on Thursday. Oh, that parade on Thursday is going to be the stuff of legend. I've seen some great championship parades. Listen, of the 4 championship parades I've seen with my Warriors, that 22 parade was different in San Francisco. Man, on Thursday. Oh, my gosh. I can't even imagine what the atmosphere is going to be like. It's going to be incredible. Now to the Spurs. So, the only real downside of this finals for me personally, because again, I picked the Spurs. I have a dog in the fight. Like, I'm not going to be mad with either team winning. But I did back in March say, yeah, the Spurs are going to play the Knicks in the finals and the Spurs are going to win. I was so cool. 3 months, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get this right. Here we go. And San Antonio disappears in multiple fourth quarters. So we obviously have to start with Wemby. Let's take the positive side of this, and then we'll go to the negative, because there's plenty to say on both fronts. I'm hearing some folks say that Wemby's standing amongst the best players in the league took a hit in this series. I wholeheartedly disagree. We'll get to how he played in these finals. I don't think he played nearly as well as he could have, but it does. Let's be honest, and I've talked about this at length on this show. So much of the conversation around superstars in the NBA over the last quarter century, whether they get to the finals, win a championship, is centered around Jordan went 6-0, and that's the standard. Like that's what it's been. LeBron James would have been better off missing the 6 finals that he lost. It would have been better for LeBron if he had been 4-0 rather than 4-6. It would be better if Wemby had just lost Game 7 to OKC and we never even see him in the finals. That I wholeheartedly disagree with, and I think it's intellectually dishonest. So it's like, wait a second, the deeper you make it in the playoffs, the lesser I should view you if you don't play great in that final stage. It's not that we shouldn't criticize Wemby, and I will, but he did lead the Spurs to the NBA Finals in his first year in the playoffs. Like that's got to matter. As young as the Spurs team was, as inexperienced as they clearly showed themselves to be time and time again, particularly in these finals, he still got them to the finals. He still, in Game 1 against OKC, had one of the greatest playoff games I've ever seen in my life with the 41.24 rebound performance against the Thunder. Like that we can't just throw that out the window and act like it didn't happen. Like he is still, you'll see how I have him ranked in my top 10 players in the NBA. I don't think you can make an intelligent case that he is not one of the 3 best basketball players on the planet. You can't. You just can't. He's the best defensive player in the league by a mile. His offense got better from the start of this year to the end of the year, and he'll only get better. That's the positive on Wemby. The negative is pretty simple. So Wemby's numbers, if you just look at this, is why you can't just, it's why you got to watch the games. You can't just judge on raw numbers. Wemby's numbers in these finals, the shooting percentages aren't great, but just the raw numbers, pretty darn good. We can show you those. I mean, averaged 26 and 11 with 3.6 blocks. Like that's excellent. But 42% from the field, 27% from 3, 78% from the line, which are all down from what he's done in the regular season. The 78% from the line is kind of shocking because he, all playoffs long, was a great free throw shooter. Was money at the line. I think the first thing is this. So we go to the obvious. Like Wemby's got to get bigger and stronger, better conditioning. The thing I always say about young players, and I'm sure we'll talk about it next week when I do the draft with Mike Guido on the grid, stay tuned for that, is, I'm not saying Guido will bring it up, but it comes around every year at this time during NBA draft season. Man, that guy's skinny. Yeah, who isn't? Like literally every player with the exception of LeBron James in 2003 as an 18-year-old, everybody comes in the NBA kind of slight. Why? Because A, they haven't grown into a man body, and B, they're about to get the best trainers on planet Earth with these organizations. I mean, people bring up, Steph all the time. Like, man, look at Steph when he came into the league and look at the muscle Steph's put on now. Steph's a good example. Who is arguably the most, at least in their prime, currently playing, the most powerful, unstoppable force athletically in the league? It's Giannis. Look at Giannis when he came to the league. Look at Giannis now. Like, guys are going to put on muscle. Like Kevin Durant's kind of the exception, but KD oddly doesn't need it, although physicality has bothered him. We can debate that another day. Wemby, look at him when he came to the league and look at him 3 years later. He's put on muscle. I don't think he needs to put on muscle so much as, and this is a weird situation the Spurs could find themselves in, he's got to play more minutes and be in better conditioning and be in better shape for these playoff games. I mean, an underrated storyline from Game 5, 5 minutes to go. Wemby's not on the court. Luke Cornett is. Why is Wemby not on the floor? Is it because he's tired? Is it because the Spurs want to manage his minutes, even in the closeout game of the finals? It's a little bit of both. I have to imagine it's answer C on that. Is that, okay, if we, in the Spurs, we know go back to Pop, have always been, and I think for better most of the time, very judicious with how they manage minutes. Duncan, Parker, Ginobili, especially as they got up in age. Steve Kerr, I've defended Steve Kerr till the cows come home on how he's managed Steph's minutes. Like, what do you want? Steph at 37 years old playing 40 minutes a night? You're out of your mind. Like, no, you don't want that. You want Steph to be at his best in the biggest games. But Wemby is 22. Wemby at times, I'd say by about mid-Western Conference Finals, looked kind of gassed. And by the end of the finals, looked spent. I mean, he had, to start that game, man, had 5 blocks in the first half. It's like, oh my God, is he going to have a triple-double with blocks in this game? 0 in the second half. That's legs. That's being exhausted by the time we get to those final minutes. And it's even evidenced by a stat. I saw this today. Maybe we should have made it into a graphic, but Wemby in the first quarter and third quarter of these finals. So why did I say first and third? Because those come after breaks. First quarter, it's literally the first part of the game. Third quarter, after halftime. He shot 52% from the field in the first and third quarter in the series. In the second and fourth quarter, 30%. A 7'5" guy, 30%. That's legs. That's also, I think, to a degree, game planning and strategy. That was kind of a thing in this series. Like, why aren't they playing Wemby down on the block more? Listen, I know Cat had his way at times this series, but Wemby's still taller, can get a shot up over Cat, who's about 7 inches shorter than him. The other aspect with Wemby is this, and this is important. I think it will be one of these storylines in the NBA next season. He will go into year 4 with the target on his back for multiple reasons. A, because for as much as he's been hailed as, oh, he's the best prospect since LeBron, and you wait till this kid hits his prime and all those things. Now we actually got to see it this year. He was top 3 finishing for MVP. He was the unanimous defensive player of the year, and he led the Spurs to the finals. So just that alone, people are going to be paying attention to Wemby now more than ever. What I'm more so referring to is the fact that in these playoffs, really from the second round on, didn't do a ton to help his reputation as it pertains to dirty plays. Heck, forget the elbow to Naz Reid's jaw. That sounds weird to say. Yeah, forget the flagrant 2. Not only that, we get to these finals. In game 3, he literally grabs Jalen Brunson and just throws him to the ground. That's what he did. We showed you the tape on the show after game 3. Just throws him to the ground. No flagrant foul. Game 4, I think it was inadvertent because of the fact that Wemby kind of tapped Cat in the back afterwards, like, hey, my bad, bro. But elbows Cat in the jaw. And then to me, most alarming, game 5, closeout game. I'm not saying Wemby intended to do it. I don't know. But Jalen Brunson's going up for a 3, knocks it down to his credit because he was awesome in game 5. Wemby's clearly in his landing space. And Spurs fans of all fan bases should know about the landing space rule, the Kawhi Leonard rule. Back when Kawhi Leonard was with the Spurs, it actually happened to be his final playoff game with San Antonio. They're playing my Golden State Warriors. Game 1, Zaza Pachulia gets under Kawhi on a jump shot. Kawhi lands on Zaza's foot, twists his ankle, doesn't play the rest of the series. And the NBA, as they should have, instituted a rule, okay, this is dangerous. This will be a flagrant foul from now on. You have to give the shooter the ability to land safely. They didn't call flagrant on that. Now, maybe after the fact, because we saw it happen with Draymond Green famously in 2016, even though it shouldn't have been the case, we've seen flagrant fouls assessed retroactively. So, like, had the Spurs won, I think it's on the board. Wemby would have been suspended for Game 6. It's like, well, they can't suspend him for Game 6 of the finals. Man, I don't know. Hadn't he kind of, hasn't the goodwill, so to speak, or hasn't he kind of run his course on getting the benefit of the doubt? Like, if we have multiple plays going back to Naz Reid in round 2 to now of you committing objectively dirty plays, eventually the league has to step in and do something. And so that component onto it, as well as the fact, well, let's show you what Wemby said after the game and then go into the last point of what I was going to say. So Wemby after Game 5 and the Spurs loss.
I think that's compared to anything before, this is the biggest lesson of my life, the biggest learning moment. I can't tell exactly what the lesson is, but we're learning from that for sure. I'm learning more than any other time in my life before.
I mean, listen, to his credit, he did take accountability, but there has been that sort of thin line in these playoffs of, is it confidence? Is it an old school mentality? Or is it hubris and arrogance? Whether it was talking about, and I actually agreed with Wemby, but during the regular season talking about ethical basketball. Now, I could argue, yeah, I agree. Flopping nonstop, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is not ethical basketball. What's also not ethical basketball is elbowing people in the jaw and landing in shooter's space in a closeout game of the finals. That also is not ethical basketball, to be fair. Whether it's the fact that after Game 5 against the Thunder, when you go down 3-2 and you did not play well in Game 5, you ducked the media. So for some reason or another, it didn't get fined for that. I have no idea why. And then in these finals, just time and time again, yeah, we're better. We are the better team in the series. And folks were like, oh, well, I mean, the Spurs led for 72% of the finals. Cool. They lost all of them. They did that. That would be like if you had an election and it's like, lost all the swing states, but they were all close. You still lost. That's what happened with Wemby and the Spurs. To their credit, they won Game 3. That was it. Up double digits in all 5 games and lost 4 of the 5 of them. Played 8 times this season. Lost 6. I mean, like that's what happened. And so that last sort of aspect of there being a target on Wemby's back, the dirty stuff I think will matter more to the players and how they approach Wemby is, okay, let's see if we can get under his skin. Let's see if maybe a little elbow to the ribs will set him off and maybe he gets ejected throughout the game and all of those things. From the media's perspective, we know that matters as it pertains to how basketball players recovered, is that I think Wemby will go into next year the way LeBron went into year 5 after his first finals appearance. So 2007, Bron drags a bad Cavs team to the finals. He has the 48-point game, 29 of the last 30 for the Cavs in that Game 5 against Detroit. They get swept by the Spurs. No one crushed LeBron for that. It's like, man, the fact you even got here is unbelievable. It knocks him over. That Spurs team was way better. But going forward, it was, okay, now we expect you to win. That's why he got crushed despite scoring, 40-something points in Game 7 against Boston in 2008. That's why averaging 30-plus a game against the Magic in 2009 got crushed for losing that series in 6. Got crushed in 2010 after blowing a 2-1 lead to Boston. Really got crushed in 2011. We know what happened against Dallas. Like someone argued, Brunson only got the monkey off his back. I disagree wholeheartedly, but folks still hold 2011 against them, or the fact that he's 4-6 in the finals, because there was the comparison or the idea, can you be the greatest player of all time? Those are the conversations we've had about Wemby. Now he's lost the finals, didn't play poorly in it, but played well below his standard in it, 30% from the field in the second and fourth quarters. Those expectations are going to skyrocket. I think he will go into next year as the favorite to win league MVP. And I don't even disagree with that. But the expectations will skyrocket. That goodwill that he built up with the getting the Spurs to the finals, their head of schedule, and the confident press conferences. Confidence will now be perceived as arrogance going forward. He will now be viewed, I think rightly so, as kind of a dirty player, as evidenced by what he did throughout these playoffs. Like, that's reputations can change on a dime. And so we'll see what Wemby does next season. I think he's going to be phenomenal. If this is year 3 Wemby, the heck's year 4 Wemby going to look like? He's still 22 years old. But that's how I think he'll be viewed going into next season. All right, we're going to take a 1-minute break. When we come back, a brief discussion on whether Jalen Brunson's the greatest Knick ever. Really want to get into my top 10 players in the NBA currently coming out of the playoffs. Looks very different, obviously, than it did coming in. And give us some love and some respect and some admiration to Mike Brown for the job that he did with this next team. All of that coming up in just 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody for stopping by on this Monday. Just a program update, going forward. Barring any Giannis news, which, I mean, if you listen to Bill Simmons' podcast, and Bill's a Celtics fan, Bill's close to the Boston Brass, as we know. He's saying there's a chance that Giannis might get moved this week to the Celtics. All NBA teams are eligible to make trades now. It's possible. Barring any Giannis news this week, no shows the rest, this week on Carving Up Live. Could be back next Monday. For sure, we'll be back next Tuesday on the grid to do our 2026 NBA Draft Live reaction show. So definitely stay tuned for that. I missed most of last year, except for like the last 30 minutes of the second round. Mike Guido pretty much had to carry the show on his lonesome without me. I'm not going to leave Mike hanging this year. Very, very excited for our draft coverage, especially. It's one of the best NBA drafts that we've had since 2018. I mean, 2018, that's the Luka draft. And you had Trae Young, DeAndre Ayton. Like, that was Mikal Bridges was in that draft. Like, that was a really, really strong. Jalen Brunson was a second-round pick in 2018. Now, all of a sudden, like, who is the best player from the 18 draft? It's probably Brunson. So, very, very fun stuff to come. Also, check out our Carving It Up merchandise. Scan the QR code, top left corner of your screen. Check out our merch. We got hats. We got T-shirts. We got any and everything that you can possibly imagine. Check it all out on the Grid's website. You can also check out our merch from Barry Grant Jr. of the All Even Podcast, Alfred Parsard Jr., the Metropolitan Report, Cowboys Cam Fan. I know those guys are just hyped and ready to go for, what is it, a month and a half from now when training camp starts. They'll probably have boots on the ground in Oxnard where Cowboys have their training camp. It's going to be fun. Maybe we can get the Cam Fan guys on this offseason or during the season. I could be wrong. I don't think we've ever had the Cam Fan guys on. I may have had Adam on the show, one of the trio. There's Anth, Adam, and AJ. I think I had Adam on the show like maybe 2.5 years ago. If we can make it happen, scheduling wise, it may not come till the holidays. Who knows? To get all three on, that would be a blast. That would be. I've been on their show. They're the coolest guys ever. Do a fantastic Cowboys related show and football show in general. Definitely check their stuff out. Barry Grant Jr. Barry, I hope I'm not betraying confidence here. I think he's going to be at the parade on Thursday. So ain't no telling the content he's going to have on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and everywhere going forward. And Alfred's out here, boots on the ground at Mets games, Metropolitan Report. Great, great stuff as always. Check him out as well. And if you just want Grid Network merch, this says Grid. I'm literally looking at a hat right over there that says Grid Network. Check that out as well. Let's talk briefly about the whole greatest Knick conversation ever, or greatest Knick ever conversation, then get to top 10 players in the league, and then we'll finish with Mike Brown. So going back to what I was saying earlier is Jalen Brunson the greatest Knick of all time? So going into these playoffs, I think there was a pretty universally agreed upon Mount Rushmore in Knicks history. I think it was across the board. You might have your fringes that were campaigning for like Melo or somebody. It was 4 guys. It was Willis Reed, Walt Clyde Frazier, Patrick Ewing, Jalen Brunson. Those were the 4 best. Like, I think everyone obviously agrees in the first 3. It was between Brunson, Melo. I don't know, man. Melo won 1 playoff series in New York. I'm not saying that's all his fault. He won 1 playoff series in New York. Jalen Brunson has won a playoff series every year he's been a Knick, including getting the conference finals last year, which Melo never did, and then obviously winning the title. This year, winning finals MVP. Here's what I'll say. So much of how we talk about sports, team sports that is, I should say, I don't want to say a disproportionate amount like it's a bad thing, because I don't think it is necessarily, because I do think ring culture is toxic. I think, oh, this guy never won a ring. He wasn't any good. It's like, did you watch him? Did you see what they did? Okay, they didn't win a ring. Doesn't make him a bad player or something. But what you do in the playoffs matters. It objectively does. Tom Brady does not have the most league MVPs in NFL history. He doesn't have the second most league MVPs in history. Peyton Manning's got more than him, and Aaron Rodgers got more than him. No one's arguing Manning or Rodgers are greater than Tom, because he won 7 Super Bowls. And even without the 7, even mixed into the 7 is all of the great playoff runs and all the great playoff performances that he had. Jalen Brunson, since becoming a Knick, and the reason that matters is A, because the team won a championship with, B, more importantly, it's when he got his own team. He was with Luka in Dallas. He was fine. If you actually go back and look at the first 3 games of the 2022 playoffs when Luka was hurt, Brunson kind of looks like he looked now. Like when Brunson had his own squad, he was doing this. When it was Luka, more ball dominant, didn't look like the same guy. Since joining the Knicks, Brunson averages 29 a game. By the way, does on relatively, I'm looking at StatMuse right now, relatively efficient shooting. Shoots about 46% from the field, 34 from downtown. Could be a little better, but he hits the ones that matter, right? Year by year in the postseason with the Knicks. Year 1, Brunson averages 27 a game, knocks out the Cavs, who were favored to win that series, and did take the Heat 6 in the second round. That Heat team ended up going to the finals. So that's something to be proud of for your first year in New York. Year 2, I remember talking about in the show. He was unbelievable for that team. But Cat wasn't there yet. Julius Randle was. Julius Randle was hurt. OG Anunoby got hurt. Brunson himself got hurt at the end of the Pacers series. Beats Philadelphia in the first round. Takes the Pacers 7, gets hurt at the end. For the playoffs, averaged 32 a game as a 6'2 guard. Last year, averages 29 a game. Leads the Knicks to their first Eastern Conference Finals in a quarter century. And then this year, averages 28 a game, leads the Knicks to their first championship in a half century. Like, if we do, rightly or wrongly, and I think generally rightly, view the playoffs as so much more important than the regular season, does anybody currently playing in basketball today elevate their game more than Jalen Brunson? I would say no. Jokic is about the same. And by the way, I say this all the time about superstars. What I want you to do as a superstar is to maintain your level of excellence. That's why when you have, to me, indisputably the 2 greatest players ever, LeBron, Jordan were better in the playoffs. Steph at times has been better in the playoffs. Like we've seen these guys step up when the moment gets the biggest. Brunson is the ultimate poster child for that. He's the best player in the postseason relative to the regular season. And so, is he the greatest Knick ever? This is probably a terrible answer for a podcast. I don't know. You know what I do know? He will be, if he isn't already. Not for Chloe. Why did I say Chloe? I was acting like I was talking to my sister. I apologize. We argue about sports sometimes, mostly football. Is that even if the Knicks don't win another championship, he's a legend in New York for the rest of his life. I mean, we talk about the jokes like, oh, he'll never buy a drink in New York the rest of it. No, like he will go down as like I don't want to say hero, because God knows there's been plenty of heroes in that city, but he will go down as, can I argue, a New York icon? Can I make that case? I mean, because it's not just the Knicks breaking this curse. It's the fact that, and I've said this before in the show, I don't live in New York. I've been there one time, loved every second of it, can't wait to go back. New York loves their sports. In football, they love the Giants, they love their Jets. In baseball, they love the Yankees and the Mets. They love their hockey teams. Some people like the Brooklyn Nets, not many, because anytime I turn on a Nets game, there's more of the opposing fans than Nets fans. That's a basketball town. It's not a football town, baseball town, hockey town. That's a basketball town. Like there is if you talk to or hear interviews from players from New York, there's like a sense of pride. I'm from New York. That's a basketball town. They freaking love their Knicks. And the fact that it wasn't the great all-time great center, which Patrick Ewing was. It wasn't what they hoped it would be in 2019 when Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving they thought would come and didn't. They ended up going across the street in Brooklyn. It wasn't a 6'11 wing who averaged 30 a night. It was a 6'2 guard who was a second-round pick from Villanova who led this team to the title. And that's not to take credit away from anybody else in that squad. Bridges, Hart, Anunoby, and Cat all were important to this run. The bench, who we'll get to, all important. Coaching. But that guy's going to be the face of it moving forward. OG to a degree as well because of the end of Game 4. But folks will remember Brunson for what he did in this postseason, particularly in the finals. And so, unbelievable stuff. Let's transition now. I always do my top 10 players in the NBA entering the playoffs and exiting the playoffs. So before we reveal my top 10 players currently, if we've got the list, we'll make sure this is right because I don't want to reveal the current one. So this is what the list looks like going into the playoffs. So here we go. So before the playoffs started, these were my top 10 players in this order. Jokic, SGA, Wemby, Giannis, Luka, Ant-Man, Steph, Cade, Jalen Brown, and Jalen Brunson. Safe to say, spoiler, Brunson's going to be higher than 10 on this list. Jalen Brunson has the 10th best player in the NBA. That was the 10. So without further ado, let's get in the next 10, or not the next 10. These will be my top 10 players in the NBA for the full off season till we start back in mid-October next year. So starting at number 10, it is from the Boston Celtics, Jalen Brown. Jalen Brown, 10th best player in the NBA. Here's why. Listen, this is a guy who led Boston to the 2 seed in the East. This is somebody who can give you a 30 a night. I think it's very much on the board that we do not discuss Jalen Brown as a member of the Celtics in short order. He could very well, actually, I think it's kind of impossible for the Celtics to potentially get Giannis and Brown not be a part of that. You're hearing some Clippers rumors here and there, some Bucks rumors, who knows? But he's an elite scorer. The only reason I had him at number 10 and not higher, he actually fell a spot in this list, is because the fact he was the best player on a team that blew a 3-1 lead in the first round. By the way, to a Sixers team that got swept off the floor by the Knicks in the second round. Like that matters. And so, but he's a finals MVP. He's an Eastern Conference Finals MVP the year that the Celtics won the title 2 years ago. He gets better every year. And he showed you, yeah, I can be a number 1 option. Jalen Brown's the 10th best player in the NBA. At number 9, he is in the top 10. You cannot tell me he's not one of the 10 best players in basketball. My man, Steph Curry. Steph, 9th best player in the NBA, and here's why. So he's still the league's best shooter. When he played, he obviously dealt with the knee injury this year. Hopefully that won't be an issue next year moving forward. Steph still averaged 26 a night. Like, Steph was still great. We saw him in that, you said it was a playing game. Yeah, there was a playing game because the Warriors missed Steph for a third of the season. Against the Clippers, what did he drop? 36? He was on 34, 36, something like that. Unbelievable. Still the best shooter in the league. Still arguably the best ball handler in the league. Can score at will. Plays kind of like Brunson. Plays through contact. Doesn't get the whistle a whole heck of a lot. It's still special. If the Warriors can somehow, some way, and I think the chances are slim, absent a LeBron James move, if they can put a somewhat respectable roster around him, Steph will get the most out of it. He absolutely will. Championship? Not sure. He'll get the most out of it. Steph Curry's 9th best player in basketball. At number 8, he actually made double check. Yeah, he stays exactly where he was at coming into these playoffs. Cade Cunningham. So Cade Cunningham, 8th best player in the NBA. Listen, I can't rise him because he did average almost 30 a game, but on like 43% shooting, which is not great for a guy his size. But, and also the turnovers were a problem. But there's also the element of, yeah, but what did we say about the Pistons all year long? Why did I never buy Detroit as a legit contender despite being the 1 seed and winning 60 games? That's okay. They have no offense. Tobias Harris had the big game 7 against Orlando, but that's part of it too. Like, you had to come back from a 3-1 deficit on Orlando. You went to game 7 with Cleveland, who got, obliterated by the Knicks. But still, Cade is getting better. Cade was a legit MVP candidate this year. He carried as much of a load offensively as any player in the entire NBA. Cade, I think, is comfortably a top 10 player in the league. He's the 8th best player in basketball. At number 7, a guy who, coming into these playoffs, I thought was the best American player. He's been supplanted for now. He's still awesome. and Edwards. Anthony Edwards, 7th best player in the NBA. So, I said this a lot throughout the early stages of playoffs, particularly in the first round, even when he was going through injuries, is, hey, man, I mean, this guy did lead the Minnesota Timberwolves to the Western Conference Finals back-to-back years. Like, that's something. Jokic had never done that, or has never done that. SGA hadn't done that until this season. Obviously, Wemby hasn't yet. It's his first playoff run. Like, that, there's something to be said about that. Luka Doncic has never gone to back-to-back Western Conference Finals, so he's an elite playoff performer. He's taken down some of the best players in the NBA. I think that Minnesota team, it's so weird because Ant's phenomenal. Gobert really did a lot for his reputation in the first round. The job he did on Jokic. They obviously got some help from Dosunmu off the bench, but at the same time, DiVincenzo's got a blown Achilles. Julius Randle feels like they probably have to move off from this offseason. It's like they're like the top of that tier 2 of Western Conference contenders below OKC and San Antonio. But Ant in his own right, great playoff performer, always steps up the biggest moments. He was hurt this year. That's why we didn't see him at his best. He's the 7th best player in basketball. At number 6, I got to admit, this has got to be the first time he's been outside of my top 5 in, 7-8 years. It is still great, but he drops a little bit. Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Milwaukee Bucks. The only reason I'm saying that is because it's probably the final time they'll say that on a list like this. Giannis is at number 6 on this list. So he didn't play that much. Didn't even play half the season this year with a myriad of injuries. There was the drama. Folks thought he might get traded at the deadline, and then Giannis said he was excited to stay, and now it looks like he wants to leave. It has been as confusing a situation to follow, and I can't wait till the situation's resolved itself, to say the very least. At the same time, the last 2 seasons that he was fully healthy, he averaged 39 and 61% shooting. He's still pretty good. He is a Defensive Player of the Year award. He's not quite to the level defender that he was when he won that award in 2020, but he is still still arguably the most dominant player within 5 feet of the basket since prime Shaquille O'Neal. He's unstoppable. When he's healthy, it's 30 and 11 a night. He's still fantastic, and whoever gets him will be very, very lucky. Giannis is the 6th best player in basketball. I debated between 6 and 5. The only reason I put number 5 ahead of 6, which is Giannis, obviously, is because more recent playoff success. We've seen him in bigger games more recently. He's at number 5 on the list. It is Luka Doncic. Luka is the 5th best player in the NBA. Here's why. He led the league in scoring this year. There was a case for him to be league MVP because of the offensive limitations that the Lakers had. At the same time, we did this stat on the show that had he, not that he was going to win league MVP, but had he won it this year, it would have been by a mile the worst defensive rating of any MVP in league history. Like, it would not even been close. That said, he's a gifted all-time great offensive player, can get to his spots anywhere he wants on the floor, despite not great athleticism. However, this is kind of the second straight year where his body has, I don't want to say betrayed him, but has failed him to a degree, right? Is the fact that a year ago, his first year in Los Angeles, he didn't make his Lakers debut until like late February because he was already hurt. He missed multiple months, his final months as a Maverick. And then this year, the hamstring out for the whole playoffs. So is availability going to be a little bit of a concern for Luka going forward? I certainly hope not, but it's been the case the last 2 years. Luka Doncic, though, still one of the 5 best players in the NBA. At number 4, this has got to be the lowest he's been in this list in at least 3 years. It is Nikola Jokic. Jokic, who some to this day still make a case the best player in the world, is at number 4. So here's what I'll say about Jokic. Absolutely an all-time great offensive player. That goes without saying. He can give you a 39. He became the first player ever in the history of the league to lead the NBA in rebounds and assists. That's never been done before. Average a triple-double once again. At the same time, as phenomenal as he is, since Denver won that championship in 2023, they've gone backwards. 2024, they lost a Game 7 to the Timberwolves, in which they blew a 20-point lead at home. Last year, they go to a Game 7 on the road against OKC and get blown out. So Game 7, 2024, it's close. Game 7 in 25, it's not. And then this year, you get bounced in round 1. You're inefficient. You are awful defensively against a Timberwolves team that had no business beating you. And Edwards was hurt. DiVincenzo blew his Achilles in Game 4. Ayo Dosunmu got hurt in that series. Like, that Timberwolves team had no business going to the second round. And they did in large part because you did not play well enough, and you kind of got shut down by Rudy Gobert in big spots. Now, the good news is, hey, that reputation or that his standing on this list or on most lists where he's not the best player in the world, that can change next year. If he wins a 4th league MVP, gets Denver to at least the Western Conference Finals, if he were to knock out Wemby or beat the Thunder, that changes. As for now, absolutely still a Mount Rushmore player in the league. He's at number 4. At number 3, I had him as the 2 spot. He drops a spot. I'll explain why. It is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. SGA, third best player in the league, still top 3. So SGA fanboys, don't get too mad at me. Here's the thing. We talked about this extensively, particularly in the Western Conference Finals, is that 2-time league MVP, deservedly so. I'd have voted for him last year. I'd have voted for him this year. He's a great mid-range scorer, can score down low. However, as we saw in this postseason, we did the stat. When Shai shoots 8 or more free throws, he averages around 32 a game. Like, that's about what his average is. If he shoots fewer than 8 free throws, 21 points a game. You're like, well, yeah, of course the scoring's going to drop. Yeah, the scoring's going to drop. Should the efficiency drop? Because it was an 11, I think he shot something like 50. Gosh, I'm butchering this number, but it's in the low 50s percent. We've got videos on the channel. You feel free to check it out. But low 50% shooting from the field if he gets 8 or more free throw attempts. Why is that? Because of the, let's be honest, the theatrics and the flopping and the non-basketball movements which referees have bought for him to get to the line. Guys are like, man, I can't get within 2 feet of him, so they can't really guard him. That's not to say Shai can't score at elite level when guarded. It's to say he's got it easier than most stars in that regard. He does. His efficiency, his scoring kind of plummeted in the Western Conference Finals prior to Game 7, which he played well to his credit. Still elite scorer, back-to-back league MVP, deservedly so. But I think another conversation going into next year is, okay, how reliant is he going to need to be on the whistle in order to be a great scorer? Because I think there will be some conversations in the NBA. How are we going to officiate Shai or any flopper going forward? He's still, though, third best player in the league. At number 2, he came to his playoffs number 3. I don't see how he could fall. At bare minimum, he's got to at least stay where he is on your list, depending on where you had him. He has to at least rise. He got the team to the finals, for crying out loud. Victor Wembanayama. Wemby's at number 2 because he is indisputably the best defensive player in the league, as evidenced by the fact that he's the first unanimous DPOY in league history, is the fact that at age 22, for as below his standard, particularly in fourth quarters of these finals he still took the Spurs. He led the Spurs to 62 wins in year 3 as a 22-year-old, beat the OKC Thunder in a Game 7 on the road. In the Game 1 of that series, dropped 41 and 24, and led them to the NBA Finals. Like that's gotta matter. Again, I know we're in the so much of a superstar getting the finals is clouded by how we viewed Michael Jordan. It's like, hey, if you get to the finals, you better win and go undefeated. Otherwise, you'll never be Michael. Which has plagued LeBron. It's plagued plenty of guys. It might plague Wemby in a decade. Who knows? I just simply refuse the logic of getting further in the playoffs actually a bad thing. What? So it'd have been better if Wemby had lost in Game 7 than had these finals never occurred and he didn't take place in them. I reject that idea. He's going to be sensational. He's going to at some point be the best player in the world. But as for right now, and I'll fight anybody, I'll die on this hill the rest of the offseason, Jalen Brunson's the best player in the world. And I'll explain why. Going back to what I was saying earlier, if we're going to value, if we're going to maybe overemphasize to a degree the importance of stepping up in the playoffs as a superstar, no one does it better than him. And when he does it, he happens to put together some of the greatest performances we've ever seen in the history of the NBA Finals. Again, most points closed out a championship. We showed this earlier in the show. Only Giannis in 2021 and Bob Pettit in 1958 have scored more points than Jalen Brunson in a game to close out a championship. He's tied with Michael Jordan's iconic Game 6 back in 1998 against the Utah Jazz. In a game where his team scored 94, he scored 45. For the breadth of the postseason, clutch scoring, when the Knicks were leading, 42% from the field, 30% from 3. When they were trailing or tied, 51% from the field, 43% from three-point range. A 6'2" guard led the Knicks to the NBA championship their first in a half century. And so, my question, Brunson's title of best player in the world is not like when Jordan was the best player in the world, or LeBron, or Shaq, where it was this guy, then he got to go quite a ways to get to number 2, where it's just one superstar had a stranglehold on that best player in the world belt. My argument would be this simple. Who are you taking ahead of him? Who? Shai? I saw Shai against the Spurs defense. He struggled. Wemby? Different positions, different players. I get it, but I saw them on the court together, and Brunson was much better. Much better. Jokic, I don't know. We got knocked out in round 1 by a Timberwolves team that had no business beating that Nuggets team. And then you go to Jokic and Giannis, and I think as great as Giannis is on the defensive end and Luka is on the offensive end, Jalen has now been without Luka for 4 years. Luka's been to 1 NBA Finals. Brunson's been to 2 Eastern Conference Finals and 1 championship and a Finals MVP. And Giannis hasn't advanced past hasn't gotten to past the second round in 5 years. Like I think the best, it may sound like a weak case, and the reason it might sound that way is because the gap between him and Wemby, Shea, everybody else is slim. Who you taking ahead of him? If the playoffs matter, if being clutch matters, if carrying your team matters, then by that criteria, would he not be the best player in the world right now? And you say, Bryce, you're just doing it's recency bias. It was the Finals MVP. When Shea won Finals MVP, I did not view him as the best player in the world. Obviously, when Jalen Brown, God bless him, when he won the Finals MVP in 24, I did not view him as the best player in the world. So this is not a one-size-fits-all. If you get that Finals MVP trophy, you're the best player in the world, so proven otherwise. No. The context of how you do it is what matters. How Jalen Brunson did it, how he has done it for years with the Knicks, carrying them in the playoffs, being their guy, he's the best player in the world currently. Now, if you had to ask my opinion, I think by about mid-season, maybe if it'd be by the playoffs, maybe we get a Finals rematch. Who knows? Wemby probably takes that title from him at some point because obviously Wemby's upside is way higher than Jalen. But upside is a conversation that factors in the best player in the world way more than it should. Well, Kevin Durant has a higher offensive upside than Steph Curry. A, that's arguable. B, well, I don't know. I saw them together. They won a championship or 2 championships. And apart, Steph's won 2, KD's won none. And Steph's the greatest ever at putting the ball in the basket from 3-point range. And isn't putting the ball in the basket kind of the name of the game of basketball? Steph does that better than literally anybody from long range. Why can't he be? Oh, he's not athletic. Russell Westbrook is. What has he won? Like that's if winning matters, if productivity consistently, if that matters, why can't Brunson be the best player in the world? So my top 10 players in the league, now we can show the full graphic. If we have it, that is. I think we have it. Maybe we don't. I don't know. We'll see. Hang on. The best player in the world graphic may or may not have it. I guess we don't. Is this it? Yeah, here we go. Okay, best players in the world. Top 10 in the world. Here you go. 1 to 10. Brunson's number 1. Wemby's 2. Shea, Jokic, Luka, Giannis, and Edwards. Cade, Steph, Jalen Brown. Those are my top 10 players in the NBA as we sit here today. Again, I've said it once, I'll say it again. If Jalen Brunson is not the best player in the world, who are you going to put there? Here's a take that I flirted with today. I ultimately decided, no, I think that's disrespectful to Brunson to do this. Is it possible best player in the world's vacant? Because for so much of our lives watching the league, there's always been that guy. There's always been this dude who's held that belt for, 7 to 10 years or so. Bron held it for a while. Kobe held it. Jordan. One could argue Duncan held it. Shaq held it. I think Steph's had periods where he's held it. There's always been, that's the best player in the world. There really isn't that right now. Some people say Jokic. Some people say Shea, Wemby, Brunson. Like, it's all over the place. So if you want to say it's vacant, that is a more than acceptable take. Why have Brunson number 1? Who are you taking ahead of him? That's where I'm on. Okay, last segment before we get out of here. Because, all right, let me mention this and then we'll get to Mike Brown. I think there's a possibility, and I don't think it'll be as controversial as what I said about another sport 5 months ago because there isn't as much homerism and tribalism and what have you. For at least my whole life, I was born in 2003. For my whole life in college football, the SEC is the best conference. SEC is the best conference. Alabama, Georgia, Florida had their glory days, and LSU, and then you got A&M and these schools. SEC is the best. And as I've said in the show, I don't know. Big Ten schools won the last 3 national championships, and SEC team has not appeared in a national championship in 4 years. Like, that's got to mean something. SEC teams have a terrible record, non-conference in bowl games and in college football playoff games. The Big Ten has a phenomenal record. Big Ten's the best conference right now until proven otherwise. My whole life, that same logic, or not logic, that same statement. Oh, SEC's best conference. In the NBA, Western Conference is better. Western Conference is better than the Eastern Conference. Is it? Because I don't know that it is. Because recent history would say otherwise. The Knicks went on one of the greatest playoff runs of all time and then won the finals in 5 games over a 62-win Spurs team. Last year, one of the biggest what-ifs in the history of the NBA Finals. The Indiana Pacers go on, you could call a Cinderella run, fair. They took the 68-win Thunder to a Game 7, and Tyrese Halliburton blows his Achilles after getting off to a roaring start in the first quarter. Who knows what happens if Halliburton stays healthy? At the very least, they pushed him 7. And then in 2024, I thought the Mavs going into that playoffs were at bare minimum the second best team in the West. And Boston dusted them in the finals. It wasn't close. So last 3 years, Celtics rolled to the title, Pacers pushed a 68-win OKC team to a Game 7, and then lost their superstar in that Game 7. And then the Knicks, gentlemen, sweep their way to the title this year. So is the West the best? I've joked, called the Western Conference. I'm not so sure that's true today. Next year will give us more of a clear example of that. Like if we go into next year and it's, let's say the Spurs make it back and let's say Boston gets Giannis and it's Tatum and Giannis and the Celtics win the championship. Well, then that would be 3 titles in 4 years for the East. The one loss would have went to a Game 7 when that team lost their superstar in that Game 7. I mean, we've got to, so much perception becomes reality, and how we discuss sports or anything in life, it just becomes second nature for us to say these things. But we also do have to live in the here and now and what's actually going on. And the reality is, East has been a little bit better than the West the last few years. It has. The West might have the more flashy superstars, the bigger city. Man, out East, they go on dominant playoff runs, more so than the West. And in the NBA Finals, they bare minimum more than hold their own, and max, they roll to a title in 5 games. It's something. All right, last topic. And I'm willing to bet that I'm the only show, podcast, television, anywhere, radio show, that is ending my show on Monday, June 15th, 2026. Everyone's talking about the Knicks. I'm willing to bet I'm the last show that's going to end talking about Mike Brown, the Knicks head coach. So you definitely heard it when he got hired last offseason when the Knicks fired Tibbs, which, go back and look, I was completely in favor of. You heard it throughout these playoffs, and it's not as loud today, but you've heard it even after the Knicks won the championship. Yeah, Mike Brown's a good coach. He's pretty good, but it was about Jalen Brunson and OG and Cat, and not say it was about those guys. Yeah, I'm saying Brunson's praises throughout the show, and we'll continue to throughout this offseason and next year's season. But let's look over Mike Brown's resume. So, at the bare minimum, Mike Brown was an assistant coach to Greg Popovich and to Steve Kerr. 2 of the, Pop's arguably the greatest coach ever. Kerr's, I think, indisputably top 10. So let's be conservative and say 2 of the 10 greatest coaches ever. They're like, yeah, I want that guy on my staff. Get to the Warriors in just a second. So that's something. So he's obviously a really good assistant coach, or 2 of the greatest coaches ever, want him on their staff. Not only that, if you look at his coaching career, so you say, well, his first finals appearance in 2007 was with the Cavs. That was a LeBron thing. Generally, I kind of agree. Like, that Cavs team had no business being in the finals. Bron carried him. That was the story of that Cleveland team. And he said stops. That Cleveland tenure didn't work out. And then he went to the Lakers, and that didn't work. And he went back to Cleveland, and it was even worse. And now all of a sudden, he's an assistant coach with Steve Kerr and the Golden State Warriors. What is so often forgotten about that 17 Warriors run, when you think about the 2017 Warriors, you think of, oh my God, they lost 1 game the whole playoffs. KD was amazing in the finals. Steph had his best finals of his career to that point, and Draymond was defensive player of the year. And Clay was hitting shots, and Iggy. It was like the last year of Iggy being a really, really good player. And that bench was deep. Y'all know I just said what I think about Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr went from game 3 of the first round to game 1 of the NBA Finals without coaching because he had some health concerns. We know about Kerr's issues with his back that he dealt with. Hopefully those aren't as big of a concern now as they once were. I don't think they are. Mike Brown coached the Warriors. That playoff run, and in 2022 when Steve Kerr missed, I think it was 3 games due to COVID, Mike Brown in those 15 games, 14-1. You can say loaded roster all you want. Fair enough. He was the coach. And so for the job that he did in Golden State, the Sacramento Kings give this man an opportunity. They were shown some of the longest title droughts in the NBA. And it's like the Wizards haven't won in 47 years. Portland hasn't won in longer than that. I'm blanking on whoever second place was. And then it had it might have been the Atlanta Hawks. And then number 1, longest championship drought in the NBA. The Sacramento Kings have not won a championship in 75 years. They are the poster child for a dumpster fire organization in the NBA. And they certainly were when Mike Brown got the job. What did Mike Brown do year 1? Leads them to the 3 seed and takes the defending champion Warriors 7 games. It takes Steph Curry having one of the greatest game 7s in NBA history, dropping 50, to knock out the Sacramento Kings. Mike Brown took the Kings to the 3 seed. And that wasn't exactly a stacked roster. It was De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis and like Keegan Murray. It was Harrison Barnes. It was a nice basketball team. It was not good enough to be the 3 seed in the Western Conference. So Mike Brown got the Kings to the playoffs and the 3 seed, by the way, took the defending Warriors 7 games. And as the Kings are apt to do, they, like idiots, fired him a year and a half later. And then he takes the Knicks job. And so much of the job that he needed to do with the Knicks was predicated on like, dude, just use your bench. Tibbs, God bless him, is a great defensive coach. Tom Thibodeau does not believe in using a bench in the regular season and darn sure in the postseason. He uses like 6 guys that he trusts, and that's it. Not only did Mike Brown use his bench, did you know this? This is a shocking stat. Jalen Brunson obviously led the Knicks in scoring in these NBA Finals. OG Anunoby was in second in scoring in these NBA Finals. Who was third place? Jose Alvarado off the bench. Who was fourth place? Landry Shamet off the bench. Why is that? Because he gave them real important minutes in the regular season and in the playoffs. I remember Shamet missed like 1-3 the whole Eastern Conference Finals against Cleveland. Jose Alvarado, they got the deadline to be kind of their hustle guy, culture guy. We saw how important he was at the end of Game 4 in their comeback. Just by building, and so much of coaching is not X's, in the NBA at least, is not X's and O's. It's getting the best out of guys from an emotional standpoint. Mike Brown does that. I mean, even as silly as this sounds, Eastern Conference trophy presentation and NBA Finals trophy presentation. Mike goes on stage to do an interview with Lisa Salters, and they're doing the Finding Nemo seagull thing. Mine. Like, they love that guy. Ask the guys in Golden State. Ask Draymond and Steph. Love Mike Brown. Who fired him? The dysfunctional Sacramento Kings. The Lakers when they were more dysfunctional than they are now. The Cavs when they were more dysfunctional. Where has he worked? Golden State, well run. Knicks, well run. He even worked in Sacramento, which is awfully run. So I'm hearing today that, he's not, like he was just kind of like a passenger on the ship. Like he was, not to throw shots here, but like Nick Nurse on that Raptors team in 2019, or Coach Budenholzer in 2021, or Frank Vogel in 2020. Guys, they do not win this championship if Tibbs is their head coach. They do not win this championship if Mike Brown is not the next head coach. They just don't. Landry Shamet doesn't get the minutes he gets. Jose Alvarado, Mitch Robinson. I mean, it's incredible the job this guy did. Year 1, the expectation was, you better win a title. And he freaking did it. And he was instrumental in doing that. And the Knicks, for all those comebacks they made, I mean, I saw a stat, like I think it was the 7 greatest comebacks, second half comebacks in finals history. This year's Knicks own 3 of them. I think it was game 1, obviously game 4, greatest comeback in finals history, down 29. And then game 5, they're down 16, come back and win the game. so much of that stems to coaching. We're good, guys. Let's get some stops, get some good looks, be the kind of team we are offensively. That's it. It's not analytics. It's not, I'm going to draw up the perfect play. I mean, maybe the greatest play, not maybe, I think indisputably the greatest play in Knicks history was an offensive rebound tip-in. Like, doesn't that kind of signify what this team was? They didn't beat you off of shooting the three better than you. They didn't beat you off of, just bludgeoning you. I mean, I guess they did at the end of the Hawks series, Philadelphia and the Cavs, but against a team as good as they are, the Spurs, no, they had to come back from deficits in all 4 games, all 4 wins. And the coach deserves credit for that. And so I thought it was awesome to see. So as a Warriors fan, couldn't be happier for Mike Brown. I think he did a sensational job. And listen, I'm sure if and when the Knicks go on like a 3-game losing streak in February next year, Mike Brown's on the hot seat. Maybe not. Maybe he's built enough goodwill with the Knicks fan base. Like, maybe we'll give him another year. But I'm being facetious. But I thought he did a sensational job. And I think this Knicks team obviously means more to their city than any NBA champion that I can remember, and is one of the more likable teams that you've seen in the league. I mean, you've seen the quotes. Cat, who even before he got to the Knicks, has been very outspoken about his mother, who tragically passed in 2020, and after his first finals game 1 of this series, when he was, I thought, the best player in that game for the Knicks, answers a question from Ernie Johnson, gives this like really deep, I think, just frankly beautiful answer about how he felt like just this calm, and like it was like mom was watching me, and it was incredible. And OG understated. I mean, we played the bye after game 4. And they said, OG, you just had a game-winning tip-in to cap the greatest comebacks in finals history. He's like, how you feeling? He's like, it's pretty good. It's good, but we're on the next game. I mean, it wasn't Jokic in 2023 where it's the job's done, we can go home now, but it wasn't far off. OG's very understated. Jalen, obviously very likable. Mikal Bridges has never missed a game his entire career, ever. Josh Hart, the ultimate hustle guy. Like, it's a likable bunch of guys. Mike Brown, likable dude. Really, the only unlikable guy in that entire organization is James Dolan. No one likes Dolan. Everybody likes the World Wide West, Leon Rose, Brown, the roster. No one likes James Dolan. And obviously, everyone loves the Knicks celebrities. Spike Lee, Chalamet. Listen, I'm sure some of the celebrities will be in the parade. As far as I'm concerned, Spike Lee deserves his own freaking float. Like, for those that may not know, we know Spike Lee, oh my gosh, he's a diehard Knicks fan. He's been going to games for decades. What a lot of people don't know is that Spike Lee and James Dolan, and going back to Dolan being the most disliked figure in that organization by a mile, Spike Lee has so much of a beef with James Dolan, and they've had their issues over the years. Spike's like, screw it, I'll buy my own tickets. I don't want them I will buy my own tickets. And so Spence, now that sounds like, well, yeah, you're, especially in the times we're living economic, like, yeah, celebrities should buy their own tickets. I know Ben Stiller, who's fantastic and documented this thing. People got mad at Ben Stiller, like, oh, you don't buy your tickets? Like, that's ridiculous. You're a celebrity. You of all people should be able to buy tickets. I get that. Spike, when the Knicks were absolutely garbage to now when they're winning the championship, always there. Always there. Always sitting courtside. Always bringing that energy every single night. I don't think he goes to all 41 home games. He goes to most of them. I didn't see him miss a playoff game. And he's Spike Lee. He's got other things to do. But that's what's great about sports, is that it is the great, in some ways, when it comes to passion, it's the great equalizer. We're the same as Spike Lee and Timothy Chalamet and Ben Stiller and Tracy Morgan and all of these people. So with that, that's all the time I have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. No shows for the rest of this week. We'll probably be back maybe Monday, certainly on Thursday or Friday to react to like the NBA draft, which should be very, very exciting. Great draft. Who's going to be the number 1 pick? All of it. We'll be back next week, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time. I'll give you all updates, likely on Instagram. Follow me on my social media platforms. Instagram at Carving Up Podcast. Same on TikTok. On X, it's Carving Up Pod. And then subscribe to the 2 YouTube channels that I stream on. Carving Up with Bryson Carver, the Grid Network. Subscribe to both. Follow both. Like both. Share both. We greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate it. And here's to what was an incredible NBA season. despite the fact the finals were only 5 games, probably the single most entertaining 5-game series I've seen in any sport, much less in just the NBA Finals. So congratulations to the New York Knicks. The fans deserve it. Try not to tear up too much of the city. Let's make sure it's still New York City, not Gotham City. And that parade on Thursday, that parade on Thursday is going to be the stuff of legend. I cannot even imagine what that's going to be like in New York. So congrats to Knicks, to their fans, obviously to the players, the whole organization. Unbelievable stuff. Stay safe out there, especially in New York. God bless y'all. Peace out. I mean, that was awesome. I'm not going to lie. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.